Good thing my head wasn't down there.
This is the turbocharger. See, nice and shiny.
And I've ordered a new tub. So I've got a new frame, new aluminum skin already going to be attached. It's been a very, very, very long time since I've done any work on this car. I guess maybe this is the problem that a lot of projects suffer, is that when things get totally apart, people tend to lose interest in what they're doing. But I have heard that the frame is on its way and might be here in as little as 2 weeks' time. So it's time to get some of this stuff back together. So I've got my differential, I've got all the pieces for it. I've already put one of them back together. I'm still not too sure which one I'm going to be using. Get my press set up. And the first thing is to get the new bearings and push one of these back into one of the outer races back into the inside. So let's see if this is the right one. It says do not remove bearing until ready for assembly. No, that's a cone. This would probably be another cone. This is a cup. So yes, I have moved the frame out of the way. It's now hanging on the wall. It was amazing that I was able to push that, lift it up and into the position on the wall. Now, in order to do this, I think I need to push this first cup back on the pinion so that I can use the pinion as a press to get the cone in place. So let's take the new cone. So we'll place this on the press. So we've positioned this, tighten up the valve. I've got my little blast shield standing by wherever I put it to prevent anything from launching itself in my direction. That's as far down as that's going to go for this first travel. There, it's past the portion that is pushed. That's where the other bearing will reside in a few minutes. Okay, that's bottomed out. We have to remember before we assemble this to make sure we put this collar on. But I'm not going to do that yet because I'm now going to use this to aid in pushing the cone, or pardon me, the cup, into the hole in the differential. And it's sitting roughly in the center. Yeah, it appears to be bottomed out on the flange on the inside. So that's two pieces. Now let's slide our nose piece on, insert the pinion back in, wrestle with it, curse and swear, put our spacer in. Now we have another cup, pardon me, another, what's next? It's, well, the cup goes, how does that work again? Here's the old ones. Right, we have another cup to put in the top of this. So let's do that first. So we'll get our new cup out, and that goes in with the, so that the cone will go in the other way. Push push this whole thing back on top. So we'll use one of the old bearings and a socket. That should be it. Looks okay. Now back to the principal assembly. So pinion, new bearing, spacer, into the back end, out onto the floor. And put that on there. That'll raise the pinion up. Put the whole thing back on top. Get our new bearing and place it on top. And a socket. Holding everything in place. And down we go. Now the trick is to not push this too tight because it's got preload. And that's about it. So that's spinning nice and free. And I can't feel any upward or downward movement on this. So I think it's preloaded properly. So let's put in a pinion seal. I have some new ones here. Okay. That's good. Now, I'm not going to actually attach this one because it was from a different rear axle, and you can see it's had several different bolt patterns drilled into it. The correct flange I've put on the other differential, which I've already assembled, much as in a baking program. I've already pre-assembled one. I'll show that in a minute. So I'm just going to leave this off to the side for now, and we'll put the back half of this thing together. We'll flip it up, and now we have the guts. There be the guts. And we just lay that in front. We have the two end pieces, and they should be marked. Just see if I can find the marks here. Should maybe have scribed them. Well, it'll probably become very obvious in the process of the assembly if I've got them right or not. So we'll put this cone into here, position the thing, see if these bolts will find a hole. It should go easily, so maybe I have got them positioned wrong. So let's swap them around. There's adjustments to set the preload on this and the amount of teeth. I'm not too sure what you call it, how close the teeth mesh. And that's with these adjustments on the side here. These spin in and out, and this locks them in position. Because of the complexity of this, just a simple differential, and the fact that it's taking a fair amount of time for me to show you how it goes back together, I've decided not to really demonstrate how to put the transmission back together. It would probably be easier for me to demonstrate how to put together a fusion reactor than it would be to show you how this transmission fits. And frankly, I'm not too sure if I could get it past the sensors anyway, considering there might be a lot of swearing going on. So let's, this one has bit. We'll just put the socket on it and tighten it down a little bit. This is the fussy part of this process. You try to get the thing together, but it can't be too tight. It's all about preloading these bearings. Still too tight. Yeah, you can see it a little easier there. There, that'll loosen that one off. Now we'll try the other side. I'm going to take this other retaining clip off. Oh, isn't that special? Okay. Then we have to move them in and out with a little bit of grease on these gear teeth to determine the amount of bite that this differential has. Now, let's see if I can feel any. Okay, there's no backlash going this way. Now, whether or not the teeth are actually meshing correctly or not, I don't know. These are both roughly evenly spaced, but in order to determine whether or not it's working properly, we take a little bit of grease and then roll the differential through the pinion, and then look at the pattern. Maybe it could go this way a little bit. So let's try loosening off this side. Now it's locked. Won't move at all. So this is why I say it takes a fair amount of time to set this up properly. Loosening, tightening, hitting things with rubber mallets. So I have one differential that's already been done, and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so this one's been done. The pinion's in place. It feels a little tight, but then it should loosen up once it's in the differential or in the rear axle. It might still need a little bit of adjustment, but this one I think will probably end up in the car. So that's one finished differential, and I still have to put the gasket on it and seal it into the banjo fitting, the rear axle, but it's done, and that's one of the reasons why you're not going to see how this transmission goes together. Ta-da! The frame has finally arrived, and it's beautiful. The aluminum is just the way I want it. There's a few issues, mind you. One of the major ones is the transmission bumps up against the footbox. So I'm going to have to flip it over and take a slice off that footbox, kind of like taking a slice off a piece of cheese, and reattach a new plate. The other major issue is the scuttle box. There's a windshield wiper motor bracket in here to mount the windshield wiper, but it's on the other side. My frame has it on this side, and it's located back underneath here. And I don't know whether or not my wiper motor is going to fit. So I have to take this off and see whether or not I can fabricate some way of getting the motor in position. There's a couple of little minor things. There was one pop rivet hole in the back where they went through to drill, but going through a round piece of tubing, it slipped a little bit and elongated the hole. There's a grounding strap bolt that's missing on the frame. So I'm going to have to find some other way of grounding the engine. Before I actually do any major work though and start hanging parts on it, it's got this blue protective coating all over it. I'm going to take that off and I'm going to polish the aluminum because it's going to be very difficult to get into areas where the suspension is once I start, if I want to polish it. So there's also a few parts that are still missing, and I had hoped that they would all come over in this shipment because it wasn't going to cost me any extra to have them shipped. But I need a bracket to attach the dry sump tank. There's no handbrake lever. I ordered one, or at least I thought I did. That didn't come over. There's several other little things that are going to be missing. There's a bushing off the steering column that's missing. So, but the first thing is I think I'll take the scuttle box off and see whether or not my windshield wiper motor fits, and then it's an overall polish. I'm going to pre-assemble some of the front suspension pieces, in particular the kingpins. I did remove them all as one piece with the lower and upper A-arms attached, and that was a little awkward, so I'm going to put the lower and upper A-arms on the suspension before I put the kingpins back on. Now, I've done one already, so it's there will also be the disc brakes, the discs and the calipers that will go on, but I'm going to wait until these are actually back on the lower and upper A-arms before I do that. So I've done one and I'm going to do the other one. So first thing I'm going to do is grab the kingpin. I've already packed the bottom trunnions with grease. Now these are kind of strange because they're not like ball joints. They're actually a thread, a bolt that comes out the bottom of the kingpin and fits into this trunnion. And so when the kingpin turns, it actually gets slightly higher and lower because it's going up and down the thread. Now that to some purists, might change the steering geometry, but this is what they came up with in England many, many, many years ago. This all has to go together in the right order like a deck. And I've got the other one off to the side to use as a reference. This is the left hand. The other one was the right hand. So the steering arm I now, first off, know has to fit in this position. Because the steering arm is in that position, this goes on this direction to hold the disc brakes and has to flip in order to accommodate the backing plate. Backing plate, like so. And now we have to hold everything in place and put a bolt in the top to keep it from falling apart. This is actually the second time I've attempted this on camera. The first time I messed it up. I have already changed over the boots on the steering rack, so that is set and ready to go in. And these will be torqued to the specified amount. So there's the left side and the right side. I won't bother putting the calipers on until I get the suspension mounted back on the vehicle, but I have wire brushed them all, cleaned the aluminum surface on them. They still have the original pads in them. These pads I bought when I bought the car, and they still have thousands and thousands and thousands of miles left in them, which I guess is a great testament to the fact that the car doesn't weigh anything. So the pads, they may never ever wear out. The hubs and the discs have been cleaned. The wheel bearings have been cleaned. They need to be repacked. So I will repack them now, and then I'll seal them all up in some plastic, put them aside before I reassemble them. So in order to pack a bearing, you can either use a fancy tool, or in my case, because I don't have a fancy tool, we use a little bit of grease. I've got this special stuff that is supposed to be perfect for this. So put a little bit of it on the palm of your hand, and then just pull the edge of the bearing towards the pile of grease, and then you should start to see the grease coming out between the inner and outer race. This is definitely not the way to do it if you want to keep your hands clean. I desperately had to clean my hands after that. So we're going to clean up some of the tools. I have the dust caps for the vehicle. I'm going to just sort of gently put them on just to keep the bearings in place. These are horrible dust caps. There's no way of getting them out after, short of destroying them. So we'll just put that in there, and then we'll just flip it over and apply some, cap's falling off, don't want to risk. We'll apply some more grease to the inside. I'm going to put this down there for now. There should be enough for the inside. Then we'll take our felt ring and then a little gentle tap with the hammer. The gaskets finally came in to allow me to put this transmission back together. 4 nice brand new shiny gaskets. Oh, there's only 3 here. Well, you know, I actually tried putting this together. Here's the 4th gasket. I got it almost all back together and I couldn't get the counter shaft to mesh with the main shaft. And I figured something's got to be wrong. So I pulled it apart again, destroyed the gasket. Here is the new input shaft that I bought from the States. Here is the old input shaft. I've had it trimmed to the right length. It had to become a little bit longer. They look almost exactly the same. This one has 18 teeth. This one has 19. One more tooth makes all the difference in the world. So I had to look around and figured, do I find another shaft? There was a friend who had offered me a transmission here in the city about 6 months ago and I turned him down. Well, I checked with him again, he still hadn't sold it. So I bought the whole transmission and I'm gonna put the whole thing in. I'm not even gonna bother taking it apart. And in the meantime, I guess this is a $263 American paperweight. This differential was leaking. One of the reasons why I decided to rebuild this vehicle. That last one wasn't so bad. Now we're going to put the brake drum on. The fellow in England, when I said I was going to put the 5-speed in, said it's more trouble than it's worth. I'm beginning to believe him.